So an article was released on The Economist uh, about the future and reimagining Black Lives Matter. But the biggest thing that came from this article was the fact that Black Lives Matter and its associate organizations have been given an upward of $10 billion in donations. It says here the exact sums received will be known when the central body overseeing Black Lives Matter spending publishes its finances. Confusingly, it relies on another entity, a fiscal sponsor, the Ties Foundation. Now, a fiscal sponsor is basically a charity organization that lends its tax-exempt status to another group. So basically, instead of starting your own nonprofit, you can just have another, you can just be sponsored by another, basically. And as we know, the fact that it has all this money, allegedly, $10 billion in donations, stuff like this is even more alarming. The fact that local chapters of the Black Lives Matter groups recently released a letter saying it's time for accountability, particularly, and one person in particular that kept coming for Patrisse Cullors. Now, she is the leader of Black Lives Matter Global Network. But the bigger thing that comes from this whole thing is not even the $10 billion. It's the fact that Black Lives Matter is beginning to reveal itself for what it really is. Now, Black Lives Matter for the longest has been known as a leaderless group, a very loose structured organization. Well, now Ms. Cullors has decided that she's going to finally step up and become the leader of the group. But before you understand why things are going the way they are now, you have to understand what the Black Lives Matter movement really is and who the co-creators, what are their true beliefs. And if you follow Black Lives Matter from the beginning, since around 2014, after the death or the murder of Mike Brown and the Ferguson riots, you know that there was plenty of people, even at that time, that spoke out against Black Lives Matter, particularly the brother Darren Seals.
So I'm on the way to pick up, but we talking about Black Lives Matter campaigns. They all the same, like they all run together. It's this little gay cult, Twitter fingers, like my man Cap call them, Twitter activists. Cause they don't do shit, but so you got a lot of people sending them money, turning them into stars. Oprah tweeting at her and all that. They calling her fucking the face of Ferguson. Don't nobody know who the fuck she is. She ain't the face of shit. Wasn't even out there. When she came out there, she just sat there and tweeted. Like, what you the face of Twitter? That's what I call them. But anyways, man. But how people don't understand Black Lives Matter as an organization. They think it's just a hashtag and people just saying, man, anytime white folks are part of it, they put it in the media, something behind it. Believe that.
You have to know what Black Lives Matter truly represents. If you went to the Black Lives Matter homepage for the past couple of years, you would know that Black Lives Matter is a pro-LGBTQ or pro-feminism, anti-patriarch, which means anti-nuclear family, which means anti-black male, even though they use the black male's body, his dead body, for political capital. You have Alicia Garza, who grew up in a multicultural home to a Jewish stepfather and an African-American mother. She's now married to a transgendered Jewish man. You have Patrisse Cullors, who was under the mentorship of Eric Mann, who is very important in all of this. And you have Opal Tometi, which I can't find anything about her personal life as far as her relationships or anything. I've read that she has a husband and children. I've read that she's a lesbian like the other two women, but I'm not sure. But the most important, Patrisse Cullors has admitted her political beliefs.
some people, including, we have a number of people have reached out, including political prisoner Jalil Muntaqin, who has written from behind the prison walls, trying to reach out to Black Lives Matter activists and others. And one of the critiques that he shared, a loving critique, as I would want to point out, by the way, is that he was concerned, or is concerned, that that there's a lack of perhaps ideological direction in Black Lives Matter that would allow it to fizzle out, as he said, in comparison to Occupy Wall Street. As you are advanced in your own organization, as you all are headed to Cleveland to participate in this Black Lives Movement conference, how do you respond to that particular critique? Again, a loving critique from an elder of the struggle that some others share, that I've even shared as well, to be frank, as a concern about, in part because of the co-optation and the appropriation, that a more clear ideological structuring might be of some value here. But how do you respond to those kinds of, again, loving criticisms?
I think that the criticism is helpful. I also think that it might, I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories. And I think that what we really try to do is build a movement that could be utilized by many, many Black folk. We don't necessarily want to be the vanguard of this movement. I think we've tried to put out a political frame that's about centering who we think are the most vulnerable amongst the Black community to really fight for all of our lives. And I do think that we have some clear direction around where we want to take this movement. I don't believe it's going to fizzle out. It just gets stronger, and we see it, right? We've seen it after Sandra Bland. We're seeing it now with the interruption of the Netroots Nation Presidential Forum. What I do think, though, is folks, especially folks who've been trained in a particular way, want to hear certain things from us that we're not sort of framing it in the same ways that maybe another generation has. But I think it's important that people know that we are, the Black Lives Matter movement doesn't just live online. Although there's many people who utilize it online, we're in a different set of circumstances, a different generation that social media may feel like it's diluting sort of the larger ideological frame, but I argue that it's not.
So she's an out and out Marxist. Now she learned the tenets of her beliefs under the mentorship of a man named Eric Mann. Now, Eric Mann is a Jewish organizer. When you hear organizer or progressive, typically that just means Marxist. Now, Eric Mann, he has ties to multiple social groups from back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. One in particular, the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party was a Marxist group. Now, Eric Mann had a plan, or most Marxists follow the same plan, to build an organization, and to fulfill it, there's a particular way they go about it.
Understand that the people went down south were organizers. They were not simply agitators or activists. An organizer in a country, you put your body on the line and you build a movement of oppressed people. Then you have to build alliances with people that are not revolutionaries, but who actually might support you more than a lot of people who say they're revolutionaries. So don't write off the minister. Don't write off the elected official. Don't write off anybody. Carry out a hegemonic campaign and then build people around your line, build forms of organization, build forms of struggle, develop an international strategy, work with people all over the world, and overthrow the empire.
You see that? So you build a coalition of any demographic. You turn nobody away. That's what these protests and all these riots are about. You build a coalition. You build organizations. You got Black Lives Matter, all these local chapters, Black Lives Matter grassroots, and you build internationally. That's Black Lives Matter Global Network. You work with anybody. You hear what Patrice said? They're about black upliftment across the planet. Now, unfortunately for us, the end game isn't to help black people. Marxism was now created to help black people. Marxism was created to change world government. And we've seen what happens when black people allow other people's struggles to be put before theirs. We allowed the LGBT movement to be put before us. We allowed the feminist movement to be put before us. So this is nothing new. At some point, the Black Lives Matter movement will be revealed to just be an arm of a bigger movement. You see investments from the Ford Foundation and George Soros, and it has to make you think. So with these local chapters asking questions about funding and resources, we'll see where this goes. We'll see if these local chapters continue to punch up, or will they be told to shut up. It shouldn't take long, because a lot of black people are starting to look at this number. That 10 billion number got people popping their eyes out. So we'll see if a lot of these people that say they are part of the Black Lives Matter organization, will they start to separate themselves from it, like we saw with D-Ray. A couple years ago, when people started asking about the money, he very quickly let it be known that he is a member. He is not a part of the Black Lives Matter organization. He's just a part of the movement. But we'll see what happens. 10 billion, and we ain't see none of it.